Hi, everybody. We're going to be doing Q13, which is to complete a function table from an equation. I didn't preview it, so I suspect that we're going to have different kinds of functions, probably not just linear, probably some other types. And we're going to fill in the values. So here it is, Q13. Let's take a look and see what they got for us. Well, this one's pretty straightforward. It's f of x equals 2x. And in each case, of course, we're supposed to substitute the x's in. So in this case, we're talking about f of 0 and f of 1. And that's what we call this, f of 2, f of 3. And 0, what we're doing is we're substituting 0 where the x was. And in this one, we're substituting 1. And in this one 2, and in this one 3. And of course, we know we're going to multiply everything by 2. That's all we're doing. And this gives us our y values. So this one is going to be 0, of course. Let's go ahead and put it in. Oh, it's not letting me? What's going on? Come on. Oh, there we go. Just didn't hit it hard enough. There's 0. 1 gives us 2. 2 gives us 4. 2 times 2 is 4. And 3 times 2 is 6. And we're done. 0, 2, 4, 6. This one we're just adding 4 to each term. So x plus 0 plus 4 is 4. 0, 4 is our y-intercept, of course. And 5, and 6, and 7. Just adding 4 each time. In this one, we're going to subtract 2. 5 minus 2 is 3. Come on. 3, and 4, and 5, and 6. Man, easy ones. Let's see if they give us a harder one, though. Not much harder. We're multiplying by negative 2. Notice that we still get 0, and negative 2, and negative 4, and negative 6. We're just multiplying each of the x values by negative 2, which is what that function tells us to do. Speaking in rhyme today. Let's see. We're adding 3. So 0, 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. 4 plus 3 is 7. 6 plus 3 is 9. Okay, now we're changing the sign and subtracting 9. Talk about doing the rhyme thing again. F of x, so when I'm talking about f of negative 9, I am literally putting a 9, or putting a negative 9 rather, where the x was. And a common mistake is to not see that double negative. And this is 9 minus 9, because that double negative makes it a positive 9, which is 0. Now, the others, I'm going to do one more. F of negative 8 is equal to the opposite of negative 8 minus 9. And there's a double negative there. That means that I'm talking about 8 minus 9, which of course is negative 1. So my first value is 0. Then I get negative 1. And one of the things you may have noticed is that my x values are changing by 1. They're each going up 1. And because this is a linear function with a negative 1 as its slope, we can see that it's going to have the same effect. These are going down 1 each time. This one is going down 1, so this one is going to go down 1 to negative 2, of course. And this one is going to go down 1 more to negative 3. If you need to see that, it's going to be 7 minus 9 is negative 2, because I'm changing the sign and subtracting 9. Now in this one, we're taking the absolute value, and I'm going to go ahead and put this in the absolute value. A common misconception for absolute value is that everything inside turns positive, and you have to do whatever the parentheses say before you take the absolute value. So in other words, let me go ahead and Right. F of -9 is equal to the absolute value of -9 plus 2. And here's the problem. A lot of people see this and they say, okay, everything inside an absolute value is positive, so I'm just going to make this positive 9 plus 2. But the problem is that it also behaves like parentheses, and the parentheses have to be done first. So you have to do what's inside first, and you get -7. -9 plus 2 is -7. And then you take the absolute value, which is +7. Be very, very careful. Absolute value of uh, expressions have to be simplified first. And you also have to be careful of absolute value of variables. You can't take an absolute value of a variable because we don't know whether the value is negative or positive, and that can cause you problems. So just be careful. This one is going to be 7. In the next one, we're going to get f of -7, which is the absolute value of -7 plus 2, which is the absolute value of -5, which of course is 5. So we're talking about 5. And in this next one, I think you can see where this is going. It's going to be -5 plus 2, which is -3, and taking the absolute value gives us a 3. And the next one, -3 plus 2 is -1, and taking the absolute value gives us 1. And there is a pattern to these. All right, now we're multiplying by 4 and adding 1. So I'll just do the first one, -2. It's equal to 4 times -2 plus 1. You do have to multiply before you add, so that's -8 plus 1, which gives us our -7. So our first one is -7. Now our next one is going to be 4 times -1 plus 1, which is -4 plus 1, which gives us -3, doesn't it? Now, one of the things I can see on here is that this value went up 4, while this value went up 1. Now, so long as this one goes up 1 more, which it does, this one goes up 4 more. And of course, that's going to be 4 above -3, which is 1. I could substitute it in, or I can use the pattern. I'm going to go up another 4 to give me 5. Lots of ways to do this. You could substitute in all your values very carefully. Oh, a squared. We like to square things. Now, a lot of people are going to get this wrong for the following reason. And I've gone through this several times in my videos, but I'll do it in this one as well. What they do is they grab their handy dandy calculator. I don't know if you can see it or not. There we go. I'll put it in front of my face. There's my handy dandy calculator. And what I'm going to do is, instead of multiplying -4 times -4 in my head, I'm going to type in -4. And the minute your hand touches the calculator, I guarantee your brain turns off. And you type this in, and the calculator tells you, oh, that's -16. And then you put that answer in, and it's wrong. And there's a reason why it's wrong. You see, this negative out here isn't as important as the exponent. So this is literally saying -4 times 4, because you have to do the exponent before you take the negative. Another way to think of this is that this expression is literally -1 times 4 squared, which of course is the 16. And then you put the -1 on and you get -16. But that's not what's happening here. You're supposed to substitute inside parentheses and square that and use your brain. -4 times -4 is +16. -2 times -2 is +4. 0 times 0 is 0, and 2 times 2 is 4. It's okay that you get 4 2 different times. In fact, all of your negatives and all of your positives are going to give you the exact same answer, which is why this thing is symmetric on the positive side and the negative side. When you look at it, these are reflections of one another, because +1 and +2 and +3 give me the same thing as -1 and -2 and -3. which is why this thing can be reflected, and they're the same. We say it's symmetric. Anyway, way more than you probably wanted. So there it is. 3x minus 2. So we're going to multiply by 3, and we're going to subtract 2. I'm going to go ahead and multiply by 3 in my head and subtract 2. Multiply by 3 and subtract 2. Multiply by 3, multiply by 3, and subtract 2. So this first one is going to be 1, and 4, and 7, and 10. And one of the things you may notice is that these are going up by 1, and these are going up by 3. I don't know if you can see them or not. Notice that my y values or my f of x values are going up by 3 while my x values go up 1. That's because the slope is 3. Oh, this time the absolute value has to be done first. Remember before we had a -9. I think we had a -9 inside the absolute value, or a minus something. Anyway, we have to take the absolute value and then subtract 9. The absolute value of -3 is 3. Sorry, put it on there. 3 minus 9, because I'm taking, I think maybe I'll put it in there so you can see it. F of x equals the absolute value of x minus 9. So when I take, let me get rid of this too. I suppose I should explain it. F of -3, I'm talking about the absolute value of -3 minus 9. Now this time we have to do this first, which is +3 minus 9. And that is -6. I hope you don't need to grab your calculator for that. Remember that 3 minus 9 is the same as 3 plus -9, and the negatives win by 6. That is -6. I'm going to go ahead and do this part right here. 1 minus 9 is -8. And this one is also 1 minus 9, which is -8. Looks like we're getting a symmetric situation again, aren't we? 3 minus 9 is -6. This is symmetric in a slightly different way. What this graph looks like is down here at -9. Let me see, I think I got -9 there. It looks like this. And again, the right and left sides are equal to one another because they are symmetric. Our 1 is down here at -3, and the, sorry, -8, there we go. And my 3 is down here at -6, and so on. Anyway, there it is. This is called an absolute value graph, and it's a V for value. That'll remind you. Okay, this one is very easy to make mistakes on, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in the first couple of problems. By the way, the negatives may behave similarly to the positives, but maybe not. So you need to be very careful of this one. I'm going to put -3 is equal to absolute value -5 times -3 minus 8. And notice what happens. The absolute value of 15 is 15. And 15 minus 8 is 7. So that gives us 7. Now, this one is going to be 5 minus 8. I'm going to go ahead and do it in my head. If you need to write it all out, please do. It's just going to be 5 minus 8, which is -3. The 1 is going to be the exact same thing, 5 minus 8. In this case, it's also going to be -3. And my 3 is also going to be 15 minus 8, which is 7. Symmetric again. Surprise, surprise, surprise. This one is also going to be symmetric in some ways. It looks like we're taking our x squared, which is this, -5. I'll put f of -5. We're taking the -5 and squaring it and subtracting 6. That is 25 minus 6. Getting getting ahead of myself. Minus 6, which is 19. So we have 19. And negative 3 squared is 9 minus 6, which gives you 3. Negative 1 squared is 1 minus 6, which is negative 5. And 1 squared is 1 minus 6, which is also negative 5. Notice my negative 1 and my 1 have the same value. Absolute value of x minus 5. So we're taking f of negative 1 is the absolute value of negative 1 minus 5. That's 1 minus 5, which is negative 4. 0 is going to give us negative 5. 1 is going to give us negative 4. And 2 is going to give us negative 3. And we're done. Okay, we've got a polynomial now. So I'm going to do the first one. F of negative 1 is equal to negative 1 squared minus 2 times negative 1 minus 6. For whatever reason, my students the other day had a major issue with negatives. Negatives were giving them all sorts of problems. When you multiply a negative 1 times itself, you get positive 1. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 6. Positive 2, and then we subtract 6. That's going to be 3 minus 6, which is negative 3. So that's going to give us negative 3. F of 1 is not the same, I hate to tell you. That's going to give us 1 squared, which again is 1, minus 2 times 1, minus 6. That's going to be 1 minus 2 minus 6, which is negative 7. Bad news. There is no nice, easy pattern to this because this is a parabola and it's off a bit. It's going to give you all sorts of trouble. The best option is to just go ahead and substitute it in and find your values. I'm going to go ahead and square it in my head. 3 squared is 9, minus 2 times 3, which is 6, minus 6, which is 9 minus 12. That's negative 3. And I'm going to do this last one, which gives me 5 squared, which is 25, minus 10, minus 6. And when you subtract 16 from 25, you get 9. And there's no nice way of doing these. You have to substitute it in, okay? And we're getting there. Just make sure you substitute in your values and be a little bit careful. Now I'm going to give myself a little more space this time so you can see them a little better. So I'll put f of 1 right here, which is going to be 2 times the absolute value of 1 minus 3. I'm not going to put the parentheses. I mean, you hopefully can see what I'm doing. That is 2 times the absolute value of negative 2 minus 6. Now it's going to be really tempting to multiply this. Don't do that. You have to do the absolute value before you do the multiplying. That's 2 times 2, because the absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2. And that is 4 minus 6, which is negative 2. It's a bit long, but there it is. Now I'll put in the 2 as well. Hopefully I won't have to do the others for you. This is 2 minus 3 minus 6. So it's going to be 2 times the absolute value of negative 1 minus 6. That's going to be 2 minus 6, which is negative 4. Notice that I skipped a step already. Now 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. And when you multiply that by 2, notice what happens. 0 times 2 is still 0. So we just get the negative 6. This happens to be the vertex of this guy. When you put a 3 in for x, it zeroes out this piece right there. And when you zero out that absolute value part, it's where your vertex is located. That also tells me that this one over here is going to be very similar to this one right there. Because remember, the vertex is where the two sides are equivalent to one another. So take a look and see why it is that when I put in 4 and when I put in 2, it's very similar, isn't it? Because look at this. 4 minus 3 gives me positive 1, but notice that is still the same, isn't it? Just things to watch for. It can help you when you're doing the problems, looking for those symmetries. This one, boy, I just do not see a nice way of doing this, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it like this, f of negative 3. I'm going to write it down below. I'm going to say at 5 times negative 3 squared plus 10, I'm going to be careful, times negative 3 minus 3. Now, some people are going to want to put this in their calculator, which is fine. If you have a graphing calculator, it's very handy because you have a table function on it. But I think it's good to just go ahead and do these by hand. This is 5 times 9, be careful, plus negative 30 minus 3. And so this is minus 33, and this is 45. When you take 45 plus negative 33, I'm going to write it as an addition, that's going to be 12, isn't it? Now I'm going to do the negative 2. So 5 times negative 2 squared plus 10 times negative 2 minus 3. That's going to be 4 times 5 is 20. This is negative 20, isn't it? And hopefully you can see that's 0, and so I get negative 3. Let's see, we've got 5 times negative 1 squared. I'll go ahead and write it out. Plus 10 times negative 1 minus 3. This is going to be 5 minus 10 minus 3, which is going to be negative 8. Now the 0 happens to be really easy. The 0 happens to be the y-intercept for this, and we love 0 because when we put it in for x and we put it in for x squared, it gives us zeros. So I end up with 0 plus 0 minus 3, which gives me my negative 3. Now, one of the things you may have noticed is right here, that negative 1, negative 8 looks like it's giving me some symmetry. That is most likely, and as a matter of fact, it is my vertex. And so this parabola at negative 1, negative 8 is a parabola, and it bottoms out at negative 1, negative 8. Probably more information than you wanted. All right, we've got an absolute value again. I want you to pay attention to this one. That's going to be my vertex. And the reason it's my vertex is that it's zeroing out that absolute value part. When I put that negative 6 in, and I'm going to go ahead and write it out just so you can see it. F of negative 6 is equal to 8 times the absolute value of negative 6 plus 6 minus 6. This negative 6 is a special point because it zeroes all this out and gives me negative 6. So that's my vertex. Now I'm going to do f of negative 7. And it's 8 times the absolute value of negative 7 plus 6 minus 6. And that's going to be negative 7 plus 6 is negative 1. And when I take the absolute value, it just gives me 1. So now I have 8 minus 6, which is 2. Now, what I want you to pay attention to is that because I know this is my vertex, I know that this one down here, the negative 5, behaves just like my negative 7. So it's going to give me 2. And because this is semi-linear, my next jump is going to be based on that 8 right there. And so it's going to be 8 more. So my guess is, if I had to guess right away, I'm going to guess 10. So let's see if that's true. So let's put it in. 8 times the absolute value of negative 4 plus 6 minus 6. So this is going to be 2, isn't it? And that's going to be 16 minus 6, which of course is 10. Okay, 0, 4. I hope you guys see why I put in 0, 4, because 0 squared minus 3 times 0 plus 4 is just 4. That's why we like that one so much. When I put in the 1, I'm just going to put it in my head. 1 minus 3 plus 4. Hopefully that's good for you. That's going to give you 2. And I'm going to put in the next one. I'm going to square it. 2 squared is 4 minus 6 plus 4, which is going to be 2. Notice that these two are equivalent to one another. So that's telling me something that my vertex might be at 1.5. And as a matter of fact, it is. At x equal to 1.5, I have a vertex. That means that the next one is going to be 4, isn't it? And let's see if it is. 9 minus 3 times 3 is 9 plus 4, which of course is 4. And it looks like we're on our last one. So hopefully you guys will try it out yourself. I love the -8 because that's going to give me a vertex, isn't it? That -8 gives me a vertex at -8, 4, because all of the rest of that stuff is 0. So I like that 4. Now I'm going to go ahead and substitute in the -9. But remember, it's going to be the same as if I put in -7. It doesn't matter. We can go either way. I could put in the -7 or the -9. So let's put in, let's do f of -7. -7 plus 8 plus 4. That's going to be 1. And when I take the absolute value 1, I still have 1. It's being multiplied by -3. And when I add the 4, I get a 1. The same thing is going to happen when I put in the -9, isn't it? I'm going to still get the -1 in this case. And then this is still going to give me my -3 plus 4, which is also 1. Now, the other thing I want to look at is that the -3 is behaving like a slope in this case. So I'm guessing, if I had to guess, that's going to be -2. And there's a reason. I'm going down 3, and 1 minus 3 is -2. But I'm going to go ahead and substitute it in so you can see it. -3, absolute value of -6 plus 8 plus 4. That's going to be, this piece is 2. And absolute value of 2 is 2, multiplying by -3. That's -6 plus 4, which gives me -2. Notice I went down 3, and I got to -2, like I said. And I hope you guys will try it yourself, and I'll see you back again. Bye.